What I'm going to talk about is the planning, the response, and the recovery of this particular incident that occurred in January of this year. And then Deputy Murray is going to talk a little bit about crime prevention, some processes that your employees should be thinking about in workplace violence. Probably about 8 or 10 years ago, we started taking a look at all of our critical infrastructure in the county. Schools, colleges, university, the mall, any place where we have large gatherings of individuals. And we went around to those places and did surveys. We had our tactical teams go through them. And in this particular case, in the mall in Columbia, back in 2007, and then again 1 year prior to this event, we actually did scenario-based training inside the mall after hours, which proved to be very valuable. One of the things that we did when we talked about planning and preparation, we did some mall mapping. We handed out maps of the mall to our officers as well as uploaded on their MDC computer. And a lot of this is done because they all know where Sears is located, Nordstrom's located, but little places within the mall sometimes may be hard to locate. So what we did, you'll notice the color coding that I have here, the red, the yellow, the green, blue. That's all in our dispatch database. So if someone from the mall calls in, they'll refer to it as a yellow zone, red zone, and the officers have a little better idea where to respond. And in addition, when we went through our planning process, when we went into the mall initially years ago, inside the mall on the columns, where you see the red zone, the yellow zone, we actually have these little placards, yellow, red, so forth. So if I'm going to take you now through, this is January 25th, 2014. A normal day, obviously, from policing. We had our normal patrol beat staff, but all the administration that normally would exist on a Monday through Friday, obviously not working. Nearly 500 911 calls received in the first 45 minutes. Our 911 center has about six call takers working. Obviously, they can staff that up by maybe 2 until they start calling people in. They were overwhelmed. Many calls are sitting in the queue. And as you heard on there, actually the dispatcher was pretty calm. Obviously, we only took a snippet of the calls. There are many to choose from. Many people were much more hysterical when they called in. But the operators had to be very quick. If there's nothing new, they cut them off and went to the next one. But our patrol units got there, established a perimeter. We have active shooter teams. Again, like I mentioned in Columbine, we don't surround and contain anymore. Patrol officers, our ideal team is 5 officers that go in a T formation. They go into the facility to make contact with the shooter. We also deployed someone immediately to the security office there to view the cameras. We had a great relationship with the mall. As you know, as I mentioned early on, we had already done drills inside the mall. Some of the challenges we had initially, determine if the active shooter is still active. When those calls are coming in, one of the things you have to understand, and even for officers, they have to understand, this thing was over in less than 90 seconds. The shooting was over in less than 90 seconds, as most active shooters in those scenarios are. Half the active shooter cases, and we've had over 100 since 2000 across the country, the suspect either takes his own life or is subdued by someone nearby. But one of our biggest, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, the biggest challenge for us, and it continues to be, is allied agencies self-dispatching themselves to these incidents. Because we have social media, we have instantaneous notification of things going on, we were in, I would say, 25 minutes, we had more than 200 officers on the scene. That's incredible. More than 200 officers. And a lot of us are type A people. When we get there, we have to do something. We don't sit back and watch. Very, very difficult to control. And in this particular case, anyone heard of the Special Olympic plunge? Plunging for Special Olympics, jumping in the bay? We have one of the largest bay jumps fundraising events for Special Olympics in Maryland. And that day, on the 25th of January, was the scheduled event, which draws thousands of people and requires a lot of police. It's about, I'd say, 30 minutes away from the mall. It was canceled because of ice in the bay, so it was too dangerous for people to jump in. A lot of law enforcement participation. Well, guess where they went? It was shortly after they canceled the event. They all traveled to the mall. Unmarked cars, marked cars in various dress and attire, dispatching themselves to the mall, and that's something we had to deal with. I could spend a whole day just on that topic, but that's still one of the areas that we have to address. From an officer shooting that we had 5 months prior to this event, we had the same experience, and we made some adjustments. But when you get 200 plus officers in 25 minutes to a scene, you have to have your act together and very organized. One of the things I do want to touch, social media. I am by far not an expert. I know you all had a class on it, I believe, earlier this week. I dabble in it a little bit, but I can tell you that this was a lifesaver that day. We actually became the source for good information because the media was reporting some false information that they had gotten from quote-unquote sources that turned out to be a federal law enforcement agency at DC, there was a relationship between the shooter and the female victim. There was absolutely no relationship between the two. And the chief made that very clear in one of his press conferences, but they continued to report it until he blasted them in one of the press conferences and actually started receiving apologies. So people started following our Twitter account, thousands of people. I think we ended up having 17,000 people that signed up from all across the country following this. But that was a way for us to communicate with the people inside who were huddled, sheltering in place in those stores. You can see, like for instance, here's an example, one of the posts, police are in the mall, clear people out safely. Mall is believed to be secure, but people inside should wait for the police. We told them all to wait inside those stores with the locked doors or gates until the police arrived. Now, some of these people were so scared, once we got there, they didn't even want to open the gates. We actually had to do shotgun breaching and smashing some of the window glass to get inside because they were just so terrified they didn't want to open it up. And also it helped eliminate the rumors. So we were contacting and communicating with people directly inside the mall, which was very, very helpful.
What is workplace violence? And I know you all know these things, but these are things that you're going to try to incorporate to your lower staff people, your everyday folk that walk in and walk out, what they're involved in. You can go on YouTube or any of the other video type setups in social media and see Fight at McDonald's or Wilding Out at Wendy's. They've got all kind of names of things. There are groups of young people that go around and intentionally do these things at these restaurants so they can post it on the websites. So understand that we're dealing with almost a whole new creature in the sense of things. We're dealing with a mentality of it's all action without even thinking about consequences. Whatever happens at the end just happens at the end. And unfortunately, we all end up with the burn and the liability and the insurance and the lawsuits off of things that go on from the community itself. But we know that threatening behavior, we know what verbal and written threats are, we know that harassment, and just educating the people that work for you to know that it's not acceptable, it won't be tolerated, and you're not going to stand for it. Right around 2003, gunshots was the #1 killer in the United States. 1 in 5 high school students carry weapons. Some estimated 270,000 guns are carried in school daily. I had the opportunity to be a school resource officer 5 years at one of the major high schools here in Orlando. And it was not uncommon to catch one of our students with guns, knives, razor blades, everything. And some of it revolved around bullying to some extent, but some of it was, you know, my mom gave it to me and told me to protect myself. You know, so it varies. So that mentality can carry over into the workplace. These people are now carrying guns and knives and razor blades just like they did in high school. And it makes sense to them in their mind that, you know, if you don't bother me, I don't bother you. But if you bother me, it's going down. So you have to be open-minded to those type of understandings and make sure your policies are advising. Do not bring weapons to work. Do not bring weapons in your car. Do not bring weapons on company property, things of that nature. A lot of people will get into, well, you know, I got a concealed weapons permit. But here in Florida, wherever it is posted, no weapons allowed, then they know through the training that they went through to get certified, they can't bring the weapons to where it says posted no weapons. So you may want to look at that in the future of where you are in your buildings and businesses. You got to think about lost work days. You know, when something like this went down up there in Maryland, think of how many people are not going to want to come back to work. So now you got to find replacements. You got to find people that are even willing to come in and be the replacement. That's going to hurt for a little while. It's estimated that one homicide could cost the employer somewhere between $250,000 to $1 million just for that particular incident. Some common mistakes. That's why I asked if legal was here. The fear of being sued by the bad guy. You know, we kind of say, well, you know, we don't want any trouble. You know, we'll make it. Just don't call the cops. Just let him leave. Well, he goes somewhere else and it gets more violent, or we see situations growing and we try not to, you know, be in the gap about it, but sooner or later it's going to manifest into something else. The fear of telling the employees the facts. Now, they don't need to know everything, but I always have this analogy. You may want to take this back home with you. When people don't have information, they're going to use their imagination. They're going to think, well, if this is not what's going on, then maybe in my mind, this is what really is going on. And they're going to find themselves telling two or three other people, I'll go secondly for a minute, not gathered in his name, and then they're going to try to find a way to make it comfortable for them. The problem is they're giving the wrong information to their fellow employees, and the next thing you know, you got chaos on your hands. It won't happen here. You're sitting down, you're telling your employees, oh no, we're the most secure store they ever had. We don't have those problems. We don't have those issues. We're in a great neighborhood. And crime has no boundaries, all right? If you guys, who's from DC up here? I went to visit there once, and I actually went there for a training at the police department. And we're standing out front, and right across the street, they're popping off rounds. Right in front of the police department. He said, oh, that's normal. Normal? Okay. I went to Chicago, and we were parking, and the guy says, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. He goes, what? We got to run inside because they pot shot from up in the top. What? It's amazing. So the people that can always say it won't happen here, that's a mixed mentality that I would hope you would grow out of soon. Or they'll just say that's just the way he is. You know, Bob's always like that. He's always angry. He's always upset. Well, that's not going to help in the field that we're in, because sooner or later, Bob's going to not be Bob.